All right, Tyler. Thanks for sitting down with me again today. How's your day going so far?
It's going well. It's going well. How about you?
It's going well, just beginning. So, just a recap of what we covered last time, we decided that life insurance was something that was important to you that you wanted to learn a little bit more about. Was that correct? Still correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great. So, typically when people want to start better understanding insurance, what we do is we first go through what's called a needs analysis. Now, this helps us narrow down what is the exact right number for you. Once we figure out that number, then we go out and look at the 5 different types of life insurance and figure out what is the correct way to get to cover that number that you guys need.
Okay.
Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. So the first way, there's really a couple of different ways we can go about the needs analysis. First way is just about 20 times income. Basic round number, not as exact as some people like it. So what we typically do is try to break it down line item by line item, figure out what's important to you, and then from there we'll back into the number and we can always adjust that later. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Great. So first things first, we're going to do this both on you and your spouse. Are you comfortable speaking for your spouse today?
Yeah, for sure.
Perfect. And what's her name?
Caitlin.
Caitlin. Is that with a K or a C?
With a K.
Okay, good girl.
There's about a million ways to spell it, so.
Is it with a Y as well?
Y and 2 N's.
2 N's.
Yeah.
Wow, you surprised me there.
Yeah. Her mom's name is Lynn, so.
Great. So the first thing when we're looking at life insurance is we want to replace income. So God forbid if something should happen to you, we want to make sure that there's enough money for Caitlin to continue living the lifestyle that she's living today without having to worry about selling the house or moving back in with her parents or anything like that. So currently, how much are you making?
200.
200,000?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And then what's Caitlin's income?
75.
75. Great. So in total, that's $275,000. Now, if one of you were to pass away, what would make you feel comfortable as your family income goal? So that doesn't mean replacing all $275,000. Maybe that's $200,000. What's your thoughts on that?
200 sounds fine.
200?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why does that sound fine?
Well, you said it and you're the expert, so
okay.
I figured that was the...
No, so typically what we find is people want to replace 70 to 80% of their income.
Mm-hmm.
So for you guys, just want to make sure that we're doing the math. That's about $192,000 if we're going to replace 70%. Now, if we wanted to be on that higher end, it would be closer to 200,000. Do you still want to stay with 200,000?
Yeah, I'd like to do 80% then.
Okay.
I'd like to be on the safe side there.
Great. Okay, and then other income. Now, what this is the next slide item. Do you expect to be receiving any other income in the future that could help supplement that family income goal? So think of things like rental properties, oil and gas rights. Do you expect to have Social Security? Do any of those resonate with you?
Not really, honestly.
Not really?
Definitely not rental income or land rights.
Okay, and then you guys don't want to bank on Social Security at this point?
What do you think on that?
I'd rather have that be a benefit, but I don't like to plan for something that's not a certainty.
Okay. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Great. So income shortage. And so typically what we're doing when we're talking about inflation adjusted earnings, if you can see this 5% here, what we're trying to do is drive a stream of income, as I was speaking from before, from this sum of money, from this life insurance benefit amount.
Okay.
The number that we're using is 5%. Would you like me to kind of dive into that, why we use that number, or?
Just
Briefly?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So typically over the long run of the stock market, what we find is average growth is about 8%.
Okay.
Now, what we need to do is discount that with inflation. Reason being, I'm sure as you remember back in the day going to the candy store, you could have a nickel and you could go buy some candy. Today, you need closer to 50 cents or $1. Same thing with the rest of the economy. You think of healthcare, milk, food, gas, everything's going to be happening where there's inflation involved. We just want to make sure that we're accounting for it so that you have the same purchasing power today and in the future.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm with you then.
Great. 5%. Great. 0. Okay. And then so cash, so that takes care of the income. How we're going to be making sure that we're taking care of income. Now, whenever there is sadly a death in the family, there are some big expenses or debts that we want to make sure that we cover. The first one is final expenses. Typically, we see that a funeral today costs about $10,000. And that's a pretty standard funeral. Is that something that you would like for yourself, or do you see maybe wanting a little bit more or maybe a little bit less for something like that?
Honestly, we're just gonna get cremated. I feel like $10,000 throws a big party.
Oh yeah.
So maybe just a little less than that.
Like 5,000.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Perfect. Don't want people having too much fun, I guess, when you pass.
Exactly.
You know, I get some people that they just want a big blowout party. They just want a small cremation, but hey, make sure to go have fun. And other people no, I am having enough to go on the ground and that's it.
Yeah.
Emergency funds. So would you like to leave any pile of cash for them so that they don't have to worry about going back to work and just go properly through the grieving process?
So right now we have about 6 months of income saved up.
Yeah.
Is that enough, or do we need more than that?
So we'll account for that later.
Okay.
Later on. But so you guys, so 6 months of income. So for you, that would be about 30,000. Is that what you're hoping to use for that?
Yeah. So we like to keep that on hand. So.
Okay, we'll just write that in there, and then we'll discount that in a minute when we look at what other assets and what other insurance you currently have out there to take away from these numbers.
Okay.
Education funds. Remind me, do you have any children?
We do. We have 2.
2?
Mm-hmm.
What have you guys done in terms of college planning for them?
We have 529s set up for them. So,
you do?
Yeah.
Great. What's the approximate value of both of them?
100 in each.
100? How old are the kids?
We're getting right about ready to pay it off. They're 15 and 16, so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, well, you guys have done a great job. Honestly, I don't think that's something that you guys need to worry about with all the planning you've already done, so let's just scratch that off. Mortgage. Do you guys currently have a mortgage on your property?
No, it's paid off.
It is?
Mm-hmm.
Damn, you guys are just killing it.
We try.
And then, is there any other debt out there that you would want to make sure that was covered in the event of your passing, Caitlin's passing?
Not really.
You guys have done a great job then.
Yeah.
So total cash needs is about 35. And then liquid assets. So you said you had about $30,000 just sitting there in the bank, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you would be using that in the event of one of you passing?
Yeah, we have that.
Perfect. And then is there any other existing life insurance out there?
For me through work, I have 2 years income. So I have 400 through work.
Okay, perfect. And now one thing, do you know if that's portable, that life insurance?
I don't know. Is it usually or is it usually not?
It usually isn't, and the
Okay.
reason why I want to ask, I always ask that question. So what happens is, God forbid, if you were ever to leave the company,
Mhm.
you lose that insurance coverage. Now, we're more than happy to bake that into this calculation because I know you've been working there for 15 years, plan on working there for 15 more. What are your feelings on that?
Let's use it in there right now. If
Mhm.
anything changes, can we increase later on down the road, or maybe
So
look at buying it through a new?
So what typically happens, depending on how long down the road we're looking at, we might have to get underwritten again. The company just wants to make sure they're doing their due diligence because typically speaking, if people want to increase their coverage, sometimes it's because they already have some other issues and they want to provide some more. So just doing our homework
Yeah.
is the reason for that. So we'll just account
Yeah.
for that now. I think that's a smart idea because later on down the line, you guys won't need as much
Mhm.
insurance, so that's probably a good thing, to be quite honest. And Caitlin, does she get anything through work?
No, she has none.
Perfect. So, uh, all right, Tyler. So, I've after crunching all these numbers, here is what I have found. You are going to need about $2.1 million in coverage. Caitlin is going to need about $5,000 in coverage.
Okay.
That being said, how do those numbers make you feel?
For me, well, that comes short. You know, we said the other number is 20 times income,
Mhm.
so we're short of that. We're about 10 times income.
Yeah.
So, I'm comfortable with that. For her needing 5,000.
I would say don't worry
Okay.
about it. I think you'll be just fine.
Yeah.
And the big reason for that, her not really needing any coverage, your current income is 200,000. Your family income goal is 200,000. The only thing I would say to that, sometimes people just want to make sure that they don't have to work as much, especially with the two kids. I know they're a little bit older.
Mhm.
You won't be able to work as much, and you might have to start hiring a nanny or something like that. So the only time sometimes I make a recommendation where you might want to just get 50,000 or 100,000, but that's something that we can touch on a later basis.
Yeah.
That being said, so now that we've identified your number, what we next need to go through is the 5 types and figuring out what's the best way to cover that amount. Right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect.